Hi, today I'm going to be presenting a interview that I have conducted with an elementary school teacher named Monty Johns. He works at Bertola Hills Elementary School, which is in Torrico Canyon in Southern California. And he's also my dad. I chose to interview him in particular because he is the first introduction into what a career in the education field could be like. I grew up watching him teach. I grew up having people come up to me telling me how thankful they are for my father and how much of an impact that my dad has had on them. And I always just thought that was a really cool opportunity, a really cool thing, and that maybe one day I would want to do that as well. So like I said, he's taught at Bertola Hills Elementary School, but he's been there since its opening, which is 25 years ago. In that time, he has taught 5th and 6th grade, and he's also seen the school become something that is really well respected within the community and really successful as far as test scores, as far as students going on into doing great things in their future, as far as enrollment numbers. So it's kind of a cool idea and thing that he has been there from the beginning, and he's been a part of that success. So going into his education, he originally got his psychology degree in Fullerton. He then realized that he did not want to be a therapist like he originally thought, and went to Chapman to get his teaching credential. Then later he went and completed his master's at National College. In that time, he obviously got married, he had a family, he worked as a volleyball coach at the local high school and volleyball club, as well as at this school. So then going on to further into the interview, I asked him what the pros and cons of teaching were, and instantly, as an answer to the pro question, he said summers off. And that is something that I appreciate, being his child. We always got to hang out over the summer, and that is a cool aspect to being a teacher. However, he talked more about how it's an opportunity to have an impact on all aged people. He's had parents come up to him and say how much that he's impacted their lives by caring about their child. And that's something that was cool to me that I hadn't thought before, that teachers don't only have the opportunity to impact their students' lives, but the whole community. Also, he talked about how he really appreciates his opportunity to show others respect and influence their future. For the people that are in his classroom are our country's future. That's what's always said. And he has an opportunity to show them respect and to make them feel like they are capable and worthy of doing these great things in the future. And this is really cool because my dad always gets letters from past students who are now in their 20s, 30s, off doing their career, thanking him for being one of the first people to show them respect and to really show them that they can do these things. And that always blows my mind when people do that. They think back to their 6th grade teacher and the impact that he had on them. And that is something that is really cool. Then we talked about cons, and he immediately answered that you don't really get summers off. He went on to explain that teachers are always learning, always expanding, always rewriting their lessons and what they're going to teach so that it's most effective, and that rewriting and learning usually happens primarily within the summer months. So really, you're not in the classroom, but you're still doing your job as a teacher, which I thought was very interesting. Also, he talked about the difficulty of balancing home and work. He obviously wants to pour as much as he can into his students, but he emphasized his goal is to always make his family a priority, which is something that I could see as being a problem, is that someone that cares so much about these students in their classroom, realizing that they too have to care for their family, and that balance of doing both to whatever degree that you feel comfortable with. Also, he talked about the challenge of coming up with new and fresh and current methods to teach. He touched on the fact that throughout his years of teaching, he's noticed that students' attention span has gone down, or become shorter, and that totally makes sense considering the way we are growing up now. We have fast-paced computers in our hand, we have apps that are super fast, we have all this stuff, and it totally makes sense that a student's ability to really focus has gone down in time. And to really capitalize on that amount of time that he has, he described how he has to come up with new and fresh ways to do things, for example, including the technology into his lesson plans and doing those kind of things, which I thought also was something that was very interesting. He also touched on the idea of funding, and he realizes that his school is well funded in terms of the broader spectrum of public education, and he's very thankful for that. However, where his frustration is rooted is the fact that it's being misused. For example, he is watching his school go through, or about to go through, a remodel on buildings that don't need to be remodeled yet, at least, and that money could go to in a place that would have a better effect on education. And so that is something that he expressed is frustrating, and I could see how it's like funding in general is frustrating, whether there's a lot and it's being misused or there's not, and that struggle that comes with that. Lastly, he talked about the difficulties of teaching all students, and that what he means by that is that students of all different abilities, students of all different backgrounds, they have different levels and different needs, and it is a struggle to have one person be able to fulfill all of the 30-something needs that are in the classroom. And so with that, he moved on to the advice section, and he started with advising future students or future teachers to not make any definite decisions until they have completed their student teaching. And the reason that he said this is that if it doesn't feel right during that time, it is absolutely okay to change your mind, because down the road, you don't want to be that unhappy teacher that is not really making the impact that they should be doing. And that's just because it's not your passion, and that's okay. He also moved on to talk about that it's okay to be nervous, especially in the beginning, if you're sort of unsure, trying to find your bearings. It's okay. However, his advice was to calm down. Like, if you have the right personality, the right passion, the right drive, it's going to be okay. He also talked about the fact that in at least the beginning years, for example, like 1 to 3, you need to be prepared to work crazy amounts of time to find your footing. And that's just a reality of being a new teacher. And while that's also exciting, it can also be pretty stressful. And he warned that that's a reality of the job. So in conclusion, I'm really glad that I chose to do this. I learned a lot about teaching and how it happens and the pros and cons. And for example, something that I thought was particularly interesting was the idea of the attention span. And I made note to remember that in future when I am teaching, to really try to incorporate methods of teaching that will be most effective for the students. I also thought it was very interesting how he touched on teaching all students and how that could be difficult. And because of that, I have been taking classes in special education to better help prepare me for teaching all these different types of children and personalities and backgrounds and everything, really. And so that was very interesting and a really good piece of advice. Also, I really will take to heart his idea to calm down, and I think that is a piece of advice that all new teachers should really think. I think that might be a lot of pressure, and if you don't get it right away, you can think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is my whole life. What? And I think it was really important to say that if that passion is there, and during student teaching you were into it, and you know this is what you want to do, it's gonna be a little rough in the beginning, but just stick with it. This interview, though it was honest about the difficulties of being a teacher, it only furthered my desire to become a teacher myself, thinking about the impact, again, that he has had and that countless teachers have had on students, and just how cool of an opportunity that is has really like furthered my desire to become a teacher and to be able to address the cons and to see what I can do to help. And so yeah, overall this interview was very interesting and helpful to me. I hope it was to you. And yeah, thanks for listening.